This chapter is, to be honest, a very subjective chapter. In this chapter we are simply giving our personal suggestions as to which libraries are our preferred libraries for specific uses. Obviously, the choice of library depends on what you want to achieve with it. The first library we will look at is the Cine Symphony Lite library from Cinesamples. And this library offers us all the basic instruments we require to create an orchestral arrangement. It has two other advantages as well. The first is that it is affordable, and the second is that it is easy to play straight out of the box. Certainly for someone starting out in the world of orchestral arranging, this is an excellent starting point. You simply load a patch, such as the Strings Ensemble Arco Lite, and you can start playing straight away. This library also has articulation options. You have the option to switch between long and short note articulations, and it also has an excellent built-in reverb, and various other parameters, such as equalization and effects. There is also a round-robin option, which allows the individual samples to be alternated either in a cyclic manner or in a random way. You can, of course, buy the full version of this library. This is obviously more expensive, but overall the Cine Symphony libraries are simple to use, competitively priced, and most importantly, they sound excellent. The next library we'll look at is the Orchestral Essentials library. This is another library we've used extensively, and one that we can certainly recommend. It is a little bit more expensive than the Cine Symphony library that we just presented, but it includes more options. And much like the Cinesamples libraries, these are also multi-instruments. So you simply load up a keyboard and you are ready to go. In our opinion, this library is perhaps slightly less classical and more modern and cinematic in its fundamental sound. Certainly for an affordable library with which to create trailers or more cinematic type arrangements, this is an excellent option. There is also the Orchestral Essentials 2 library, which is the red version here. And this is not a replacement, but is an addition to the Orchestral Essentials 1 library. We would recommend starting with the green library, but then building on it with the option of buying the Orchestral Essentials 2 library. If we look at the instruments available to us in the original Orchestral Essentials library, we can see that we have the full orchestra, strings, brass, woodwinds, percussion, etc. And then we also have a sound design instrument, which includes more esoteric instruments. And now, if we look in the Orchestral Essentials 2 library, we can see that we have a different selection of instruments, including the mixed orchestra, where we have orchestra with choir, for example, or bassoon with low piano and harp. These are excellent options for epic-style pieces. Having various instruments already layered is a very interesting option. Then we arrive at the Albion 1 library from Spitfire. And this is in a higher price category, but is certainly one of our favourite libraries. This library has not only the classical orchestra instruments, but also cinematic-style instruments, and a large selection of atmospheric or even warped experimental type sounds, and many other options. The only negative thing we can say about this library is that due to its complexity, it is not perhaps as easy to use. Although many of the patches are playable straight away, you do have a lot of articulation possibilities and adjustment possibilities, including such options as microphone positioning and placement, adjustment possibilities for vibrato, and additional reverb settings, and many, many more options. So you will need to spend some time getting used to all of those options. We do have to say, though, that this is an excellent value library. Considering its price, you have a lot of possibilities, much more than you would expect. Of course, you don't need to delve into all of these options to start playing, but it is certainly worth knowing that these options are available to you. Of course, there are also many people who do not want or need all of the slightly more esoteric, affected, or atmospheric sounds, but simply want a high-quality reproduction of the individual instruments in the orchestra. And if we are looking for a library that fulfills these parameters, then we don't have to look much further than the Vienna Instruments Vienna Symphonic Library, or VSL for short. This is a very well-established library that has been around for many years. For beginners, we recommend the VSL Special Edition Volume 1 library option. This library includes a large selection, as can be seen here in the matrix, of high-quality orchestral instruments. We can see that there is a huge choice of individual instruments available to us. You also have presets of grouped or layered instruments. But the downside is that you need to create your own setups. It's not a library that you can simply load a preset with a click and have an orchestral sound available straight away. You have to invest time in setting up the key switches, the reverb adjustments, and various other parameters. So sonically, this is an excellent library that is still one of the best. But it's not really for beginners who simply want to create arrangements quickly for their songs. Having said that, if you invest the time and create your own presets and templates, you will be able to create exceptionally good results. One other point to mention with the VSL library is that the instruments do not have any reverb in the instruments themselves. This is a huge advantage for many people, as you can simply choose a high-end reverb and you don't have to worry about removing or adjusting the reverb on a sample, if at all this is possible in some cases. So this is an excellent library for creating arrangements that will be mixed using third-party reverbs. One could consider this a problem with other libraries. They include a reverb, and even if that reverb is excellent, it may not suit all requirements for specific arrangements. In that case, you either have to go in and edit the instrument, or in some cases, you simply have to live with it. In the case of the VSL library, you simply choose your favorite reverb and mix with that. There are high-end versions of these libraries available to you from VSL and Spitfire, for example, that can cost up to thousands of euros. But we have avoided these as they are not really relevant in our tutorial's context. But we still have some other options to discuss. These are more specialist libraries, and the first one is the LASS Lite library that we discovered in the ostinato chapter. This is the LA Scoring Strings library from AudioBro. Here we can see we have a lot of options in the library. The advantage of this library is that it is excellent at creating ostinato patterns. Of course, you can use it without the pattern player to play your own melodies in. And another thing to note is that there is also no reverb included. So you do have to use an external reverb, very much like on the VSL library. The next library or libraries we will look at is from Sample Modeling, and is the SWAM library with their SWAM player. We have chosen the clarinet, but of course you have many instruments available to you, such as flutes, bassoon, saxophone, etc. This player helps create extremely realistic instruments, but this is a solo instrument, so you simply get the individual instrument, and if you wish to build up an entire library of all the instruments, this can lead to a certain amount of investment. These are, however, excellent libraries that sound as good as anything else, and are exceptional when combined with something like a breath controller or a wind controller. The brass instruments from Sample Modeling are almost exactly the same, with the exception that they do not use the SWAM engine, but they run from within the contact player. Both options give you exceptionally realistic instruments, and we can hope that they introduce a string library at some point. And last but not least, we arrive at the Capriccio library. This is an excellent library for those people who perhaps do not have the skills to perform to the level they wish, or simply need fundamental ideas or phrases that are available to them. Sonokinetic offer a variety of phrase libraries, and these libraries are excellent for those who want to create classical or modern arrangements quickly without the need to create your own musical patterns. It also offers you the possibility to see how individual instruments create certain effects. So this is an excellent library for those who are interested in seeing how specific musical passages are created. But the main advantage of this library is that by simply choosing your chords, the instrument can create interesting classical patterns. Of course, for percussion instruments, many of these developers will offer libraries, but you can also use individual samples that can be purchased or in some cases downloaded for free from the developer, allowing you to build up a library of your own choice. The best thing here would be to go to the individual developers' websites and check out what they have available, and choose the ones that sound best to you. Also, most of the available libraries will have individual tutorials that you can purchase or watch online. But hopefully we have covered the majority of entry-level libraries, which of course can be used professionally too. And as mentioned at the beginning of this chapter, this is purely subjective, so please visit developers' websites and get an idea of which library suits your method of working and your musical tastes.